Well, good day, everybody. Glad you can join me today. So right now, this is the knife that I restored the edge on. And we're going to test it out before I bring it in the field on some deer meat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a half of a deer, process it into cubes. I'm going to remove the fat, the silver skin, and the whatnots. Then what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to can it and then put it on the shelf. It lasts for a long, long time, and it frees up a lot of freezer space. So let's get started and test out this blade to see if the sharpening did its thing. I can tell you, she's sharp. Most definitely. Most definitely. Good. So right now I'm just removing all the silver skin, they call it. Don't need that. Yeah, she's very, very sharp. I'm liking it. Flay's good. Can use the tip. Oh, I like it. Yeah, brought it back to life. Took a while though. Took a lot of finesse. Okay, now I'll cut it up into cubes. Look at that. Yeah, that cuts nice. Nothing wrong with this knife now. Very impressed. Gotta like venison also. Look at that. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I got a half a deer cube, and then we're gonna fill some jars, get everything ready for the canner. But I just wanted to test this knife, and I'm liking it very much. It's going to be a great knife in the field. So I'm happy with that. Performing well. So anyways, there's all kinds of recipes online when you talk about canning meats. I have a friend of mine that told me what he does with a little bit of spices and whatnot, and that he removes all the fat, the silver skin, and cartilage and whatever, and just keeps the all natural meat, which I'll do the same. As far as spices, I think I'm gonna leave that aside, because depending on what type of meal I'll be using this for will decipher what type of spices I put in it. I could put the standard garlic powder, salt and pepper, and that's it, or whatever. But I think I'm gonna just leave it as it is and let the dish reflect on what type of spices I do with it later on. But I also have friends in Newfoundland that they can a lot of deer, bear, moose, stuff like that. And they have a lot of different recipes also, which was very, very good. They used to make stew in a bottle, same idea, canning. They probably put maybe that much meat, double the potatoes, carrots. They put turnip, and they'd fill up their jar that way in layers. Then that's what they would can and put on the shelf. So if they ever wanted a deer stew or whatever, it's already pre-made. Add a little bit of liquid, add some spices, and that's all they do. I like that idea also, but I think what I'll do is I'll stick to the traditional, fill up my jars with just the venison itself, and that way I can decide later on whether I'm going to make a stew, a sauce, a chili, or just something like a tacos. So I'll let the meal decide on what type of spices I put in. So I'll get back to you once I have everything diced up and cleaned up. All right? Be right back. All right, so you can see that the meat itself is nice and lean. Makes for good cubes. Now, this knife, yeah, she cuts pretty good. Turned out nice. I'm glad for that. I was a little worried that I wouldn't be able to get the edge back. So basically, all I'm doing here is removing like all the silver skin, the unwanted. So that's just going to go in here and in the garbage. But when you're looking at your roasts and stuff like this is so fine that it's so hard to remove all the silver skin, without losing a lot of the meat. But yeah, if you're going to break down all the muscle structure to get out every grain of silver skin and fat, you're going to be all day. There's no doubt about it. But as long as you get the majority, then you'll be fine. Because let's face it, when you're buying stewing beef and whatnot in the grocery store, they don't trim it all for you. You got to do that yourself, and half the times it's so minimal that it's not even worth it. But yeah, so just do what you can to remove whatever appeals to you. And if you've got a family pet, fry it up, cook it up, and serve it to them. But anyways, I'll continue on processing the remainder of the meat. There's just this piece here and this piece in here, then I'll be done. Then I'm going to start setting up my jars and set up all my pressure canner, and I'll get back to you on that when the time comes. But I'll tell you, if you're going to take a half a deer, a full deer, and process it this way, make sure you got time on your plate, because it's not a quick job, especially trying to remove all that fat and silver skin and whatnot. Like I don't remove 100% everything, you know what I mean? I just take the majority off. I figured the more it cooks in the pressure canner, it's going to break down regardless. But anyways, I'm going to continue cutting, and I'll get back to you guys. All right, task completed. Now, like, I tried to get it as clean as possible. And what I mean by clean is removing the majority of the fat, all the silver skin that I can. And it was time consuming, but it was done. So anyways, this here, like I said, was a half a deer. By the time it was butchered, deboned, all the fat removed, all the silver skin removed, everything I could possibly have done myself at my end, and cube it, 22 pounds. 11 pounds in each. That's what I ended up getting. 22 pounds of cubes. So now, everything was done with the knife that I sharpened the other day. This here, razor sharp. Razor sharp. I'm a loving it. This is a hit, this is a go, and that's a nice knife. All right, so now when you're packing your jars, you don't have to go too crazy. Okay, so myself, just fill them up. These are 1 liter jars. I was going to use 500 mils, but I think I got a little carried away this season with my pickling and stuff like that. So I have none left. So I went with these ones. But that's okay. So basically, all I'm going to do is lightly pack it. I'm not going to go overboard with the packing. Okay. So again, just a little bit here. There we go. Now, that's it for the packing. Okay. Again, remember about the headspace, right? So that's what we're going to do. Now, after all the jars are filled and it's ready to put on the lids, because again, I'm going to put the lids on the stove. I'm going to bring it to a light boil, activate the seal and all that. But before I put the lids on the jars like I did with the dill pickles and stuff like that, yes, I'm going to clean the jar. But this time, I'm going to use vinegar. And what the vinegar is going to do is cut the fat. Sometimes you'll have a layer of fat on there, and believe me, if you don't get a good seal, you're going to ruin your product. So by using the vinegar, it's going to reduce the chances of a bad seal. It'll cut the fat. All right. So, anyways, I got a lot of jars to fill. So, for the inquiring minds that want to know how much deer meat's here, 22 pounds. So let's see how many 1 liter jars I can get out of this batch. Anyways, I'm going to fill the jars off screen and I'll get back to you. Okay, jars are packed. I ended up with 10 jars, identical. What I did is I weighed an empty jar. Okay, the empty jar itself weighs 445 grams. Each one of these weigh exactly 1,365 grams. So I know that I have 920 grams of meat in each one. That's 920 grams of meat. Now, I have some left over here in a bowl. But guess what? I'm going to make a stew for tonight. After cubing everything up and talking about what I want to do with it, I figured, you know what, instead of packing another jar, let's have some dinner and let's make a stew. So anyways, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my lids boiling on the stove. Again, remember, clean your rims with vinegar. Don't cheap out on that. That's going to remove all the fat and it's going to give you a good seal. All right? So anyways, like I said, this is just meat. I have no spices in it whatsoever because I want to keep it neutral for whatever dish I make. So anyways, I'm going to get canning, get all that set up. I'm going to seal my lids and I'll let you know how long it stays in the canner for. All right. So an important note, this is my canner and I have instructions for my canner. Your canner may differ from this, so just remember, follow your own instructions for your type of canner. Now this one here, I have 10 cups of water in here. And I also put a tablespoon of vinegar in here. And that's going to help keep your pot clean and you're not going to get a calcium buildup or anything like that. Now, this here, I'm going to use 10. So that's 10 pound pressure. Now, this here is going to rock 3 to 4 times a minute once I regulate it. But I'm not going to be standing by my pot for an hour and a half because this here has got to go on for an hour and a half because it's the meat. So every now and then I'll time it, and as long as it's within 3 to 4 times a minute, then that's fine. So anyways, remember, follow your own instructions for your own machine. Okay, so now I'm going to set this up and I'll get back to you when the process is done. See you in a bit. All right, so I just removed my first batch out of the cannery. It cooked for 90 minutes, hour and a half. And then the canner cooled for an hour and a half. So I just pulled them out and they're still bubbling. Nice and hot. Look at the juice. See, we didn't put no juice in. It was, a lot of videos says, oh, you know, add a few ounces of liquid and whatever. And we decided not to. And it's a good thing because look at all the liquid that's in them. Like there's lots and lots of liquid. So anyways, I put the other 5 in the canner. And now we got 3 more hours of canning to do. And we'll be done the 10 jars. But that's what we got so far. All right. Second batch is done and out of the canner. Look at it bubble. She's hot. So anyways. So now that's 10 jars done. So that's what 20 pounds of deer meat looks like. I started off with 22 pounds, but we kept a couple of pounds for our dinner tonight. So that's 20 pounds right there. Roughly 2 pounds a jar. So anyways, that's going to last quite a while. So now we're just going to let them sit and cool. And I'll show you how much fat solidifies at the top. We'll take another look at that before I finish off the video. All right, I'll bring you back when that happens. All right, so this is 12 hours later. The jars look very nice. They only have 1/8 of an inch of fat, but if you look, the meat is higher than the juice content, so there's not much fat at all. I removed whatever I could see for this process. I didn't want a lot of fat in the jars. Like, look at that. Hardly any at all. So anyways, that's 20 pounds of deer meat canned, ready for the pantry shelf. Thanks for dropping by. And don't forget, guys, leave me a comment, thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel. Take care. Bye now.